Make a cranial incision extending from the distal third of the radius to the mid-metacarpal region. Reflect the soft tissue envelope to expose the radiocarpal, middle carpal, and carpo-metacarpal joints. With the carpus in extension, lay a bending template on the surface of the joint to determine the appropriate contour of the plate. No more than 10 degrees dorsal flexion is recommended. The plate is contoured and placed on the cranial surface of the joint with a minimum of 2 plate holes over the distal radius and 3 plate holes over the third metacarpal bone. Try to place the plate so that a plate hole is directly over the radial carpal bone. Using the 2 mm drill bit with the green neutral drill guide, drill a thread hole through the most distal plate hole in the third metacarpal bone. Determine the screw length with the depth gauge. Tap the thread hole with the 2.7 mm tap placed through the 2.7 mm sleeve. Insert the appropriate 2.7 mm screw. Insert a second neutral screw through a proximal plate hole over the distal radius. A third neutral screw is inserted through the plate hole over the radial carpal bone. To apply a plate and rod construct, it's best to place the pins at this point. The lateral pin enters the head of the fifth metacarpal bone and is directed to seat into the medial epiphysis of the distal radius. The medial pin enters the head of the second metacarpal bone and is directed to seat into the distal ulna. Using the 2 mm drill bit through the yellow load drill guide, drill a thread hole through the plate hole just distal to the carpo-metacarpal joint line. After length measurement and tapping, insert the appropriate screw, but do not fully tighten the screw. Loosen the distal screw and tighten the screw placed in the load position. Retighten the distal screw. Insert a second screw in the load position through the plate hole just proximal to the radiocarpal joint line, but do not fully tighten the screw. Loosen the proximal screw and tighten the screw in the load position. Retighten the proximal screw. Insert the remaining screws in the neutral position.